Hey, Scott, it's Friday. It's time for another transformation conversation. We're up to our part three of our mini series on payment innovations, this one being payment onboarding for business and commercial customers. So welcome, Scott. And just for our viewers, I thought I'd just review what we did in parts one and two. So part one, we looked at we talked about the expansion of payment options with Chris Colson from the Atlanta Fed. And in part two, we talked about strategic differentiation in payments with David Jackson from MarketC. So really to set the stage for this conversation, despite efforts to rationalize payment processing, at many FIs that are implementing payment hubs or centralizing payment functions, bank payments remain for the most part siloed. And again, just for context, payment onboarding really addresses three types of commercial customer payment solutions. The first is really batch payments, which would involve data conversion, mapping, and reformatting. The use of application programming interfaces or APIs, so that both the message creation and integration of those messages. And then conversions, when a bank acquires a new client relationship that's already performing payments with another institution. So there's data conversion, mapping, and reformatting involved. So, Scott, it appears that payment onboarding is still tied to the specific payment processing applications with different administrative interfaces. So considering this, is it feasible to automate the payment onboarding process?
Completely feasible. So our onboarding solution, OnRamp, it supports the required components like you were talking about, user authentication, entitlements, approvals, as well as provisioning the required data to individual payment systems. In whatever that required standard format is. One additional piece that we put in or pull into the picture is identity access management, IAM, so that you have a single business profile across a multitude of payment types and payment rails, if you will. To hit on something you were talking about earlier, various payment platforms, they differ in how they process. There does exist a commonality in the data. And, all of that stuff that's used, the metadata to effect a payment. So each payment consists of both payment amount, payment information, and later, the latter following proprietary or industrial standards to keep the payment information flowing within the transaction itself. And this requires compliance with standards like NACHA, SWIFT, FedWire, ISO, ad nauseum, right? And the ability to pre-process and map those files from CSV, XML proprietary formats are critical. And just as a real quick example, when you start moving up market, you could have one corporate entity that has multiple ERP TMS systems that are each generating a standard format like ISO, and they're all different. And banks will really get nailed insofar as an implementation cycle of anywhere from 3 to 6 months.
Wow, that's amazing. So to that point, does the use of payment files, for batch or API processing make the onboarding process simpler or more complex for the commercial customer and the financial institution?
So the short answer is both. That's awful. I'm sorry. But, while I would argue that batch processes are sometimes very beneficial in simplifying business processes, right? Let's get all of our stuff queued up and then let's send it. There's an additional onboarding step required for batch processes where you've got, technical routing, security, identity, going back to some of the IAM things I was talking about earlier, to enable these message types to successfully travel across payment rails. Our onboarding solution, of course, supports those technical considerations as well as the data conversions, mapping, and reformatting. There are also, some opportunities for financial institutions to take advantage of business and corporate cloud transformations. Insofar as, as I said, our businesses are closer to our financial institutions, or they're more closer than they've ever been in the past with the cloud transformation cycles that are happening. So this is an area where financial institutions can really accelerate onboarding and improve the operational complexity, which translates to better customer experience as well as lower cost of execution.
Sure, sure. Well, to that point, with more internal company financial and accounting systems generating payment files, is it practical to leverage a single payment file format or an API for multiple payment types?
Right. And now we're like really getting into it, right? I mean, this is the grail that a lot of people are chasing. Joe, you and I, we've been doing this a long time, and we've seen an explosion of types and formats. I mean, there are more types of payments nowadays, and we're not even getting into crypto. So let's stop. Let's not go there just yet. But integrated payable solutions and embedded finance applications leverage a single mixed payment format, such as ISO 20022, which is ingested by bank processing systems, formatted and routed to individual payment platforms. For those institutions that don't have a payment hub for transactional routing, we provide with our platform API message creation and integration, as well as conversion support for other FIs or financial applications. Obviously using APIs or those message rails to a single endpoint is the easier of the two. The reason is that you're using a technical standards like REST to encapsulate the payment complexities. File formats are yet another, those are systems need to interpret those file formats, which can further, that can ingest or introduce more challenges to that whole pipeline processing. So truly, it begins in the onboarding process, and that lays the foundational bricks for successful mixed payment type processing.
That's great. That's great. Well, so obviously there's a lot of emerging payment options that are faster payments, obviously very much same day and some immediate. So some of those are subject to settlement and some of them are not. Some of them are conditional or some are unconditional, like a Fedwire is unconditional. It's not subject to settlement, whereas an ACH transaction would be. So, that further complicates the disparities in applications. So, can identity management and risk assessment processes change dynamically, when you're dealing with multiple, payment types to offer a more streamlined process for existing, let's call them known customers versus, a first time or one time only customer?
Yeah, an emphatic yes on this. Identity along with even simple API-based algorithms can create a very successful evidence-based payment pipeline. So while indeed security is where we go first with this, we, in the shoes of a financial institution, can also use these constructs for determining the velocity or timelines of payments, and begin to really provide value for our customers with suggested improvements to their overall process. So the great part of this is part and parcel to the well-recognized business model. I will pay more to ensure my payment and remittance process is modern, error-free, secure, and easy to reconcile. I mean, who doesn't like that?
Exactly. Well, and I think, there's a lot more to be discussed here. Obviously, we could spend hours talking about this subject alone, but I think what's key here is that this is going to be a competitive differentiator, for financial institutions in terms of their ability to support, a lot of innovative payment solutions, that businesses and commercial entities are looking for in terms of immediate payment, instant payments, things of that nature. And I think the infrastructure, to support those might be a bit lagging. So it'll be interesting to see how this proceeds. But thanks so much for those comments, Scott. I think they were very insightful. This concludes, part 3 of our little mini series on payment innovations. If you're watching this on our blog on the website, please feel free to comment or make suggestions or give us some feedback on what we've discussed. If you're looking at this on LinkedIn, please do the same. We really appreciate everyone watching. Look for our next episode and have a wonderful weekend. Thanks so much. Bye now. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.